The fluorescent lights in the hospital break room buzzed like dying wasps, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even the healthiest person look half dead. I pressed my forehead against the cool metal of my locker, counting backward from 10, trying to steady my breathing. 36 hours. That's how long I'd been awake, stitching together the broken pieces of other people's lives, while my own unraveled thread by thread. The coffee in my trembling hands had gone cold an hour ago, but I sipped it anyway, tasting nothing but bitterness and exhaustion. My scrubs carried the metallic tang of blood and antiseptic, smells so deeply embedded in the fabric that no amount of washing could ever truly remove them. Just like some stains on the soul, I supposed. "Dr. Morrison, you're needed in the ER," the intercom crackled, but the voice sounded distant, underwater. I closed my eyes. Emma. My name was Emma Morrison now, though sometimes I still forgot to respond to it. 3 years of marriage to David, and the name still felt like borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit. Everything about my life felt borrowed lately. The modest apartment in Queens, the sensible Toyota with the check engine light that never went off, the careful smiles I wore at hospital fundraisers while David networked with donors who wouldn't remember my face 5 minutes after meeting me. Invisible. That's what I'd become, a ghost in my own existence. The break room door swung open, bringing with it a gust of disinfectant, and the chatter of nurses changing shifts. I didn't look up. If I kept my head down, stayed small, maybe I could steal 5 more minutes before diving back into the chaos of Friday night trauma cases. That's when I smelled it. Cedar and smoke. Expensive leather. Something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe. Or just danger distilled into cologne form. The scent cut through the hospital's sterile atmosphere like a blade through silk. So out of place it made my survival instincts scream. I lifted my head slowly. He stood in the doorway, and the entire room seemed to reorganize itself around his presence. 6'3" of barely contained violence wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. Dark hair pushed back carelessly, sharp jawline, and eyes the color of winter storms. Gray, cold, calculating. Young, maybe early 30s, but carrying himself with the kind of authority that made age irrelevant. 2 men flanked him, silent sentinels in black tactical gear that their designer jackets couldn't quite hide. One touched his ear briefly, an earpiece, I realized. Security. The kind of security that suggested this man's life was worth protecting at any cost. Every person in the break room had gone quiet, some ancient prey instinct recognizing a predator in their midst. His gaze swept the room with mechanical precision, cataloging exits, threats, irrelevant obstacles. Then those storm-gray eyes found me, and the world stopped spinning. Time crystallized into something thick and viscous. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, caught in the crosshairs of a focus so intense it felt physical, like hands pinning me in place. My coffee cup trembled, liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. He didn't smile, didn't need to. The slight tilt of his head, the way his eyes narrowed fractionally, spoke volumes I couldn't translate but felt in my bones. One of his guards whispered something, but he raised a single finger, a gesture so minimal yet so absolute that the man fell silent immediately. The power in that tiny movement made my stomach clench. This wasn't someone who asked for respect. He commanded it like breathing. "Dr. Morrison," he said, and my name in his mouth sounded like a verdict. His voice was smooth, cultured, with the barest hint of an Italian accent that curled around his consonants like smoke. "A moment of your time." It wasn't a request. My colleagues' eyes burned into my back. I could feel their confusion, their curiosity, their sudden desperate need to become invisible themselves. Smart people. They recognized what I was only beginning to understand. This man was the kind of dangerous that didn't advertise itself with crude violence, but with the quiet certainty that violence was always an option. "I'm on shift," I managed, hating how my voice came out small, uncertain. "I can't just... Your supervisor has been informed you're taking a personal emergency." He glanced at his watch. Patek Philippe. My brain supplied uselessly, the kind that costs a house. "You have the next 2 hours cleared." How did he? But the question died on my lips, because of course he did. Men like this didn't make requests without ensuring compliance first. The world bent around them, rearranged itself to accommodate their whims. I should refuse, should call security, should scream, should do anything except what I did next. I stood. My legs felt disconnected from my body as I walked toward him, each step an act of will against every instinct screaming at me to run. He didn't move, didn't break eye contact, waiting with the patience of something apex and immortal. Up close, he was devastating. Not handsome in any conventional sense. His features were too sharp, too severe, carved from marble in winter, but devastating nonetheless, in the way a storm or a wildfire is beautiful even as it destroys. "After you," he murmured, gesturing toward the hallway with one elegant hand. I noticed his knuckles then, scarred, the kind of scarring that comes from hitting things, or people, repeatedly. The hospital corridor had never felt so much like a gauntlet. His guards moved with us, one ahead scanning, one behind securing our flank. Other staff pressed themselves against walls as we passed, eyes wide, conversations dying mid-sentence. The man beside me commanded space like gravity, and everyone else simply orbited. "Where are we going?" I whispered. "Somewhere private." He touched my elbow, barely, just his fingertips against the thin fabric of my scrubs, but I felt that touch like electricity. "Somewhere we can talk without interruption." Every rational cell in my body screamed danger, but I kept walking. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was the absolute certainty in his voice that suggested refusal wasn't truly an option. Or maybe, some dark part of me whispered, it was the first interesting thing to happen to me in 3 years of sleepwalking through life. We rode the elevator to the parking garage in silence. The confined space made his presence overwhelming, that scent of cedar and danger, the heat radiating from his body, the way his guards positioned themselves to create a barrier between him and the elevator doors, protecting him from threats I couldn't even imagine. "You don't recognize me," he said suddenly, studying my reflection in the polished steel doors. "Should I?" "Perhaps not. You've been careful. Or your husband has been careful for you." Something dangerous flickered through his expression, keeping you locked away in his modest little prison, invisible to anyone who might remember. The doors opened. A black Mercedes SUV waited directly in front of the elevator, engine running, windows tinted so dark they looked like portals to nowhere. Another vehicle idled behind it. More security. This wasn't a man who traveled without an army. "I need you to understand something, Doctor." "Morrison," he said as his guard opened the rear door. "What I'm about to show you will change everything. Your marriage, your life, your understanding of who you really are." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't get in the car, Emma. My name again. But different this time. Intimate. Like he'd been saying it for years in private moments. Not like we were strangers in a hospital parking garage. Like he owned it. Owned me. Owned whatever came next. I should run. Should scream for help. Should do literally anything except climb into that vehicle with a man whose name I didn't even know. "Who are you?" I breathed. He smiled then, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Beautiful and brutal and full of dark promises. "Dante Caruso," he said, as if the name should mean something, as if it changed everything. And maybe it did, because somewhere in the cobwebbed corners of my memory, bells started ringing. Caruso. The name whispered in certain circles with fear and respect. The name attached to empire and blood and power that made governments nervous. "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" "Not from you, Emma." He leaned closer, his breath ghosting against my ear. "For you. There's footage you need to see. Something your husband has been hiding. Something that concerns both of us." "David? That's impossible. He's just a hospital administrator. He doesn't—" "Get in the car," Dante repeated, softer now, almost gentle. But that gentleness was somehow more threatening than any raised voice. "Come alone. Don't tell your husband. Not yet. Not until you understand what he's done." The world tilted sideways. David, with his careful smiles and his budget spreadsheets and his weekend golf games. David, who barely looked at me anymore, who worked late every night, who sometimes came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. What footage? The footage that proves your husband isn't who you think he is. Dante's eyes bored into mine, and I felt myself falling into those winter storms. The footage that proves you're in danger, Emma. That you've been in danger for months, and I'm the only one who can protect you now. Protect me. The words should have sounded absurd coming from someone who looked like violence incarnate, but they didn't. They sounded like a promise written in blood and fire. I climbed into the SUV. The door closed behind me with the solid thunk of German engineering and bulletproof glass. Dante slid in beside me, close enough that our thighs almost touched on the leather seat. His guard took the front passenger position, and we pulled out of the garage in a smooth, coordinated movement, with the second vehicle following close. "Where are we going?" I asked again, my voice steadier than I felt. "My property in Westchester, secure, private." He pulled out a phone, one of 3 I could see in various pockets, and typed something quickly. "No one will disturb us there. No one will know you came." The casual certainty of that statement made my skin prickle. How easily he discussed isolation, privacy, secrets. How naturally he assumed I would trust him, follow him, let him take me somewhere alone without question. But I had questions. So many questions they tangled on my tongue, choking me. "The footage," I finally managed. "What's on it?" Dante looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in his expression. Not softness exactly, but recognition, like seeing something he thought he'd lost. "Your husband," he said quietly, "has been stealing from me. For 8 months, he's been siphoning money from a medical charity foundation I fund. Money meant for children's hospitals, cancer research, transplant programs. Millions, Emma. He's stolen millions. And he's been using his position at your hospital to do it." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. David was boring, predictable, safe. That's why I'd married him after all. Because safe felt like salvation after the chaos of my childhood. Safe meant no surprises, no danger, no fear. "You're wrong," I whispered. "David wouldn't. I have recordings, financial transfers, emails, and video of him with my former accountant, the man who helped him orchestrate this theft." Dante's jaw tightened. The same accountant who disappeared 3 weeks ago, with an additional $2 million and my patience. The car glided through traffic, insulated from the world outside by wealth and power and bulletproof glass. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Pale, terrified, small. When had I become so small? Why tell me? My hands clenched in my lap, knuckles white. "If David stole from you, take it up with him. Call the police. I don't understand what this has to do with me." "Because," Dante said, and his hand moved toward my face. I flinched. He paused, something dangerous flickering through his expression, then continued the movement slowly, deliberately, tucking a strand of my dark hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my jaw, calloused and warm, and I forgot how to breathe. "Because you're not his wife, Emma. You're his insurance policy, and if I don't get my money back, you're the one who's going to pay for his betrayal." The world stopped. "What?" "But that's not why I brought you here." His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and my traitorous skin burned under his touch. "I brought you here because I don't believe in making innocent people suffer for others' crimes. I brought you here because you deserve to know the truth before I destroy everything your husband has built. And because..." He stopped, jaw clenching like he was fighting some internal battle. "Because?" I breathed. "Because you look exactly like someone I lost a long time ago. And I need to know if that's coincidence, or if your husband is even more clever than I gave him credit for." The Westchester estate materialized from the darkness, like something out of a fever dream. All wrought iron gates that whispered open at our approach, a driveway lined with trees whose branches formed a tunnel overhead. And finally, a sprawling mansion that looked less like a home and more like a fortress dressed in Italian Renaissance architecture. Lights blazed from every window, but somehow the place still felt cold, unwelcoming. A beautiful prison waiting for its next inmate. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The SUV stopped beneath a covered portico, where 2 more guards waited, earpieces glinting in the golden light. How many people did Dante Caruso employ just to stay alive? How many enemies did a man need to have before he required an army for a simple drive home? This way. Dante's hand found the small of my back, guiding me toward massive oak doors that swung open soundlessly. His touch burned through the thin fabric of my scrubs, possessive and certain, like he'd touched me 1,000 times before. Inside, the house breathed wealth. Marble floors that reflected our distorted images, artwork that belonged in museums, a curved staircase that swept upward into shadow. But beneath the opulence, I sensed something else. Surveillance cameras tucked discreetly in corners, reinforced windows, the kind of security system that cost more than most people's houses. A fortress. I'd been right. Upstairs, Dante murmured. My private office. No interruptions. His private office. Alone. The words should have terrified me, but I was beyond terror now, floating in some strange space where reality had stopped making sense. My husband was a thief. I was insurance. I looked like someone Dante had lost. Nothing computed, so I simply followed, one foot in front of the other, climbing stairs that felt like ascending toward my own execution. The office overlooked the grounds through floor-to-ceiling windows, though heavy drapes could presumably seal the room off from the outside world. A massive desk dominated one side, all dark wood and clean lines, but Dante ignored it, moving instead to a wall of screens. 6 monitors arranged in a grid, currently dark. He shrugged off his suit jacket, and I watched the fabric slide from his shoulders, revealing the tailored white shirt underneath. Even in shirt sleeves, he radiated danger. Especially in shirt sleeves, where I could see the way muscle moved beneath fabric, the holster strapped to his ribs barely concealed. He was armed. Of course he was armed. Sit, he said, gesturing to a leather chair positioned in front of the screens. I sat because my legs couldn't hold me anymore. The chair swallowed me, expensive and uncomfortable, designed for someone larger, someone like him. Dante picked up a remote, his movements economical, controlled. What I'm about to show you was recorded 6 days ago at a restaurant in Manhattan. The Garden Room. Do you know it? I shook my head mutely. Exclusive. Private. The kind of place where deals happen that can never see daylight. He pressed a button, and the center screen flickered to life. Your husband knows it well. He's been there 17 times in the past 4 months. The footage was high quality, shot from multiple angles, professional surveillance, not security cameras. Someone had been watching David deliberately, tracking his movements, building a case. There he was. My husband, sitting at a corner table, drink in hand, smiling that easy smile I'd fallen for 3 years ago, when he'd seemed like salvation wrapped in a white coat and promises of stability. But that smile looked different now. Sharper somehow. Calculating. Wait for it, Dante murmured, standing behind my chair close enough that I could feel his heat against my back. A woman approached David's table. Blonde, beautiful, wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly salary. She leaned down, kissed his cheek, whispered something that made him laugh. His hand slid to her waist, familiar and possessive. The angle changed. Now I could see their faces clearly as they talked, heads bent together like lovers sharing secrets. David pulled out his phone, showed her something. She nodded, serious now, and pulled out an envelope. Money. I could see the edge of bills inside. That's Claudia Brennan, Dante said, his voice clinical, detached. My former accountant. The woman who helped your husband steal from me, the woman who's been sleeping with him for 6 months. 6 months. The timeline crashed over me like cold water. 6 months of late nights, unexplained absences, the perfume I'd smelled on his collar, the way he'd stopped touching me, stopped seeing me, stopped pretending our marriage was anything but a carefully maintained facade. Keep watching. David handed Claudia his phone. She typed something, handed it back. He smiled again. That same smile I'd trusted, believed in, married. Then he leaned forward and kissed her. Not a peck, not friendly. Deep, passionate, the kind of kiss that spoke of familiarity and desire and everything our marriage bed had lacked for months. I couldn't breathe. The room spun, tilted, tried to throw me off the planet entirely. That's not... My voice broke. When did you say this was recorded? 6 days ago. Thursday night. Dante's hand settled on my shoulder, heavy and warm. You were working a night shift. I checked. Of course he'd checked. Men like Dante Caruso checked everything, knew everything, controlled everything. There's more. He pressed another button. The scene shifted. Different camera angle. Same restaurant. Later. David and Claudia standing to leave, but another man approached their table. Older, distinguished. Someone I didn't recognize. The three of them talked briefly, then David nodded, shook the man's hand. That, Dante said, his voice dropping to something darker, is Vincent Moretti, capo in the Gambini family. My enemies. Emma. The people who would love nothing more than to see me destroyed. Your husband isn't just stealing from me. He's selling information about my operations, my investments, my vulnerabilities. He's feeding intelligence to the very people who've tried to kill me 4 times in the past 2 years. The words were bullets, each one finding flesh. My husband. The man who brought me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, who kissed my forehead absently while checking his phone, who'd promised to love me, protect me, honor me until death parted us. That man was a traitor, a thief, a liar. And I'd been too blind, too trusting, too desperate for safety to see it. Why? The word came out strangled. Why would David do this? We don't need money. We're comfortable. Comfortable? Dante laughed, sharp and bitter. Emma, your husband is drowning in gambling debts, $2 million deep with Russian bookmakers who don't accept excuses or IOUs. He needed money fast, and my foundation was an easy target because he had access through hospital administration. Claudia had access to my accounts. Together, they've been siphoning funds for months. Russian bookmakers, gambling debts. The words painted a picture of a stranger, someone I'd never known at all. And Moretti? Dante continued. He offered David protection from his debts in exchange for information about me. My schedule, my properties, my business dealings. David's been selling me out piece by piece and using you as cover. The devoted wife, the hard-working doctor, the perfect camouflage for his double life. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to hold myself together, but I could feel the cracks spreading, my entire world fracturing along fault lines I'd never suspected existed. I don't understand. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of this dangerous stranger who watched me with eyes that saw too much. What does any of this have to do with me? If David stole from you, make him pay. Turn him over to the police, to the FBI, to whoever handles this kind of thing. Why drag me here? Why show me this? Dante moved around the chair until he stood in front of me, blocking the screens, blocking everything except him. He crouched down, bringing himself to my eye level, and the movement was so unexpected, so intimate, that I forgot to breathe because 2 weeks ago, David took out a life insurance policy on you. He said quietly, $5 million, with himself as the sole beneficiary. The floor dropped away. What? He forged your signature on the paperwork. I have copies. Dante pulled out his phone, a different one than before, and swiped through screens until he found what he wanted. He held it up, and I saw my name, my signature, all perfectly replicated on insurance documents I'd never seen before. This is insane. I shook my head violently. David wouldn't. He's not. This doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. Dante's voice remained steady, implacable. David needs money to pay his debts and to run away with Claudia, but Moretti wants more than information. He wants leverage over me, something that would hurt me personally. And somehow, your husband figured out that you're valuable to me. How could I possibly be valuable to you? I shouted, hysteria climbing my throat. I don't know you. We've never met before today. Haven't we? Dante reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving me time to pull away, but I didn't. Couldn't. His fingers traced my jawline, tilted my face toward the light. Look at me, Emma. Really look. I looked. Storm gray eyes that seemed to hold centuries of darkness and pain. Sharp features softened only by thick lashes and a mouth that might have been sensual if it ever truly smiled. Dark hair falling across his forehead, one curl more stubborn than the rest. You don't see it, he murmured. But I do. Every time I look at you, I see her. Sophia, my sister. The world stopped spinning. Your sister? She died 7 years ago. His hand dropped away, And he stood abruptly, turning his back to me. Car bomb meant for me. She was 23, brilliant, beautiful, fierce. Everything I wasn't, everything I should have protected. The pain in his voice was a living thing, raw and bleeding despite the years. I watched his shoulders rise and fall as he fought for control, this man who commanded empires but couldn't command his own grief. I don't understand, I whispered. What does your sister have to do with me? You look exactly like her, Emma. He turned back, and his eyes were haunted. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same delicate bone structure. When I first saw your photo in David's personnel file 6 months ago, I thought I was losing my mind. I had you investigated, discreetly, carefully. Your background, your family, your entire life. Investigated. The word should have made me angry, violated. But I was too numb to feel anything except cold. And? My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. And nothing. You're not related to my family, just a coincidence. A cruel trick of genetics and fate. He moved closer again, crowding my space, his presence overwhelming, but David knew. Somehow, he discovered the resemblance and saw an opportunity. If he could arrange your death, make it look like an accident, he'd collect $5 million and simultaneously destroy me emotionally. 2 birds, 1 stone. You're saying my husband wants to kill me. The words came out flat, disbelieving. To pay his gambling debts and hurt you. Yes, that's insane. That's survival. Dante crouched again, capturing my cold hands in his warm ones. Emma, listen to me. David has already made arrangements. The policy is active. He's been researching accidents, car crashes, home invasions, medical errors during surgery. I've intercepted communications between him and certain specialists, people who handle problems permanently. His thumbs stroked over my knuckles, and I watched the movement like it was happening to someone else's hands, someone else's life. You have to be wrong, I breathed. David's boring, safe. He's an administrator, not a murderer? Dante's smile was bitter. Everyone's capable of murder, Emma. Given the right motivation, the right pressure, the right price. Your husband has all 3. I pulled my hands free, stood on shaking legs, stumbled away from him toward the windows. Outside, the grounds sprawled in manicured perfection, security lights casting everything in harsh relief. A beautiful prison. That's what I'd thought when we arrived, never knowing I'd been living in one all along. Why are you telling me this? I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Why not just handle it yourself? Men like you don't need permission or help. You could make David disappear. Why involve me at all? Silence stretched behind me, heavy and dangerous. Then I felt him. Not touching, but there. Close enough that his heat warmed my back. Close enough that his breath stirred my hair. Because I don't make innocent people suffer for others' crimes, he said softly. And because you deserve a choice, Emma. You deserve to know the truth before I dismantle everything David has built. Before I take back what's mine and make him pay for his betrayal. I turned and found myself trapped between the window and Dante's body, his arms caging me in without touching. This close, I could see the faint scar along his jaw, the shadow of stubble, the way his pupils dilated slightly as he looked at me. What choice? I whispered. What are you offering? Protection. The word was a vow. Come with me. Let me keep you safe until David is handled. After, you're free to go wherever you want. Start over, rebuild. I'll give you money, new identity if needed, anything you require. But right now, tonight, you cannot go back to him. You cannot pretend you don't know what I've shown you. And if I refuse, if I go home and confront David myself, something dangerous flashed through Dante's eyes. Then you'll be dead within 48 hours, and I'll have lost someone who looks like Sophia all over again. And Emma? His hand rose, cupped my face with surprising gentleness. I won't survive that twice, so please. Choose to live. Choose to let me protect you. The rawness in his voice undid me. This man, this criminal, this dangerous stranger, was asking, not demanding, asking for permission to save my life, because I reminded him of his dead sister. Because somewhere beneath the violence and power, he was still human enough to hurt. "I don't even know you," I said. But my voice lacked conviction. "No," he agreed. "But you don't know your husband either. Not really. So choose the devil you can see, Emma. Choose the one who's been honest with you, who's shown you the truth even when it hurts. Choose me." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, a storm approaching, bringing rain and cleansing and change. I looked into Dante Caruso's eyes and saw my reflection, small, frightened, lost. But I also saw something else: interest, protection, possession, like I was something precious he'd found and refused to lose again. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay, I'll stay. But I need to call David, tell him I'm covering a shift, something. If I just disappear..." "No." Dante's fingers tightened fractionally against my jaw. "No contact. He can't know where you are, can't know you know. Not yet. Not until I've secured everything. He'll worry. He'll look for me. Let him." The words were cold, final. Let him panic. Let him wonder if his plan has already gone wrong. Fear makes people careless, Emma. And I need David careless right now. This was madness. Running away with a Mafia boss. All of it. Hiding from my husband. Believing conspiracy theories about insurance policies and murder plots. But the footage didn't lie. David kissing another woman. David shaking hands with Dante's enemies. David building a life I knew nothing about while I worked myself to exhaustion, trying to save a marriage that had been dead for months, maybe years. Maybe it had never been alive at all. "I'll need clothes," I heard myself say. "Toiletries. I can't stay here in scrubs." And Dante smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost beautiful, already arranged. "I had my housekeeper prepare the guest suite hours ago. Everything you need." "You were that certain I'd agree?" "No." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and electricity shot through my entire body. "But I was that determined. One way or another, Emma, you weren't going back to that house tonight. This way is just cleaner. Consensual. Consensual." As if anything about this situation was truly consensual when the alternative was death. But he was right about one thing. I couldn't go home. Couldn't face David knowing what I knew, seeing his smile, and knowing it hid betrayal and murder and debts to Russian criminals. Couldn't sleep beside him wondering if tonight would be the night he decided to implement his plan. So I nodded, surrendered, chose the devil I could see, chose Dante Caruso and whatever came next. "Show me to the guest suite," I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "And tomorrow, we figure out what happens next." "Tomorrow," Dante agreed. But something in his eyes suggested tomorrow was already planned, orchestrated, inevitable. I just traded one prison for another. The only question was which one would ultimately destroy me. The guest suite was larger than my entire apartment. I stood in the doorway, taking in the four-poster bed draped in silk, the sitting area with its fireplace already crackling with warmth, the ensuite bathroom visible through an open door, where I could see marble and gold fixtures gleaming. Fresh flowers, white roses, perfumed the air, their scent almost cloying in its sweetness. A prison cell designed by someone with unlimited wealth and no concept of restraint. "Everything you need should be in the closet and bathroom," Dante said from behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like heat against my spine. "If something's missing, press 9 on the house phone. Someone will bring it immediately. Someone. Not him. Never him," I suspected. Men like Dante Caruso didn't fetch things. They commanded, and the world rearranged itself accordingly. I turned, intending to thank him, to say something polite and normal that might restore some semblance of ordinary human interaction to this surreal nightmare. But the words died when I found him watching me with an intensity that stole breath. "What?" I whispered. "Nothing." He shook his head slightly, as if clearing cobwebs. "It's just the way you're standing in that doorway. The light behind you. Sophia used to stand exactly like that when she was uncertain about something. One hand on the doorframe, weight shifted to your left foot, biting your lower lip. I released my lip immediately, felt heat flood my cheeks. I'm not her. I know. but his voice said he didn't quite believe it, or didn't want to. There are guards stationed outside this wing, for your protection, not to keep you prisoner. You're free to move around the house, use the library, the kitchen. But don't go outside, not until we've resolved the situation with David. Resolved. Such a clinical word for whatever violence he had planned. There's a panic button by the bed. He gestured to the nightstand. Red button, no need to dial. Press it, and 6 men will be in this room within 30 seconds. 6 men seems excessive for a guest suite. His smile was sharp, humorless. You're not just a guest, Emma. You're under my protection now. That means if someone wants to hurt you, they'll have to go through me first. And anyone foolish enough to try will discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to keep what's mine safe. What's mine? The possessive pronoun hung in the air between us. Dangerous and electric. I'm not yours, I said. But it came out weaker than intended. No, he agreed, but you will be. By necessity, if not by choice. Because the moment you stepped into my car, Emma, you became part of my world. And in my world, protection isn't a courtesy. It's ownership. It's the only way to keep people alive. The casual certainty of that statement should have terrified me. Instead, some dark, broken part of me felt almost safe. After years of being invisible, overlooked, forgotten by my own husband, here was someone who saw me so clearly it hurt. Someone who claimed ownership like it was both threat and promise. Get some rest, Dante said, already turning away. Tomorrow we'll discuss next steps. For tonight, you're safe. That's enough. He was at the door when I called out, Dante? He stopped, half-turned, one hand on the doorframe, waiting. Thank you, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure what I was thanking him for. For saving my life? For shattering my illusions? For looking at me like I mattered, even if only because I resembled his dead sister. Something softened in his expression, brief as a candle flame in wind. Sleep, Emma. We have difficult days ahead. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut with finality, leaving me alone in my gilded cage. I should have felt trapped, should have been planning escape, calling the police, doing something rational and self-preserving. Instead, I walked to the bathroom in a daze and found it stocked with everything imaginable. Designer toiletries, fluffy towels, a robe so soft it felt like clouds. The closet held clothes in exactly my size, ranging from casual to elegant, all still bearing tags from boutiques I'd never dreamed of shopping in. He'd planned this, days ago, maybe weeks. Had my measurements, my preferences, my entire life cataloged and prepared for. The thought should have felt violating. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in years. I showered until the water ran cold, scrubbing away hospital smell and fear, and the ghost of David's last careless kiss goodbye that morning. Had it only been this morning, before my shift. The person who'd left for work 12 hours ago felt like a stranger now. That Emma had been married, stable, safe. This Emma was homeless, husbandless, under the protection of a Mafia boss who looked at her like she was simultaneously salvation and damnation. The bed swallowed me whole when I finally collapsed into it, silk sheets cool against my overheated skin. I should sleep. My body screamed for it, 40 hours of wakefulness finally catching up, but my mind wouldn't quiet, cycling through everything I'd learned, everything I'd lost, everything waiting in the shadows of tomorrow. David wanted me dead. My husband, who I'd trusted with my life, my future, my fragile hope for happiness, had taken out an insurance policy on my death and was actively planning to collect. The tears came then, hot and bitter, soaking into the expensive pillowcase. I cried for the marriage that had never been real, for the safety that had always been illusion, for the version of myself who'd been naive enough to believe love could be simple if you just asked for little enough. I'd asked for so little, a modest life, a faithful husband, someone to come home to who wouldn't leave or disappoint or destroy. And even that had been too much to expect. Exhaustion finally dragged me under sometime before dawn, but my dreams were full of storm-gray eyes and the scent of cedar and smoke. Morning came with soft light filtering through curtains I didn't remember closing, and the smell of coffee so rich it pulled me from sleep like a siren's call. I sat up, disoriented, finding a tray on the nightstand that definitely hadn't been there when I'd passed out, coffee in a delicate china cup, fresh croissants still warm from the oven, fruit cut into perfect pieces, and a single white rose in a crystal vase, a note in bold, masculine handwriting. Join me for breakfast when you're ready. Third door on the left, downstairs. I should have been unsettled by the intrusion, by whoever had entered my room while I slept to deliver this. Instead, I found myself reaching for the coffee, savoring its dark perfection, while I processed waking up in a stranger's mansion under threat from my own husband. The clothes in the closet fit perfectly. Designer jeans that hugged my curves, a soft cashmere sweater in deep green that made my eyes look brighter than they had in years. Even the underwear was my size, tasteful and expensive. Being known this thoroughly should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt almost tender, like being cared for by someone who paid attention to details. I found the dining room easily, following the scent of food and the low murmur of voices. The third door on the left opened into a sun-drenched space overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. A long table dominated the room, but Dante sat at one end in casual clothes, dark jeans, a fitted black sweater that emphasized his build, reading something on a tablet. He looked up when I entered, and that focus locked onto me like a physical force. "You slept," he observed, setting the tablet aside. "Good. You needed it." Someone came into my room. I took the seat adjacent to him, close but not too close. My housekeeper. Rosa has been with my family for 30 years. She's discreet, trustworthy, and armed. He poured coffee from a silver carafe into a cup waiting at my place. "No one enters this house without being vetted and trained. Your safety isn't negotiable." Armed housekeeper. Of course. Because normal people's housekeepers carried dusters and vacuum cleaners, but Dante Caruso's probably carried Glocks and knew 17 ways to kill someone with a teaspoon. "Did you sleep?" I asked, noting the faint shadows under his eyes. "Some." He gestured to the spread of food that appeared almost immediately. Someone had been watching, waiting for my arrival. I had calls to make, arrangements to finalize. "What kind of arrangements?" Dante's smile was predatory, the kind that ensure your husband doesn't get to implement his plan. "I've had eyes on him since last night. He called you 17 times, Emma. Left 12 voicemails, each one more frantic than the last." My chest tightened. "What did they say?" "You want to hear them?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. He pulled out his phone, a different one again. How many did he have? And pressed play. David's voice filled the dining room, and I flinched at its familiarity. Hey, it's me. Where are you? The hospital said you left early for a personal emergency. Are you okay? Call me back." The next one, an hour later. "Emma, seriously, I'm worried. This isn't like you. Please call. I'm coming home to check on you." Then, "Your car's not here. Where the hell did you go? Emma, you're scaring me. Call me right now." The progression was fascinating in its desperation. By message 8, David's voice had shifted from concern to angry. By message 12, recorded at 3 a.m., he sounded almost afraid. "Emma, I swear to God, if something happened to you, just please call me. I need to know you're safe. Please." Dante stopped the playback, watching my face. "He sounds genuinely worried because his insurance policy disappeared," I said bitterly. "Can't collect on a body he can't produce, partially." Dante leaned back, studying me over his coffee cup. "But there's real fear there too. Whatever his plans were, you vanishing wasn't part of them. It's disrupted his timeline, made him vulnerable. Scared people make mistakes." "What happens now?" "Now?" He set down his cup with deliberate care. "Now we wait. Let him panic. Let him reach out to his co-conspirators. Let him expose the full extent of his network. My people are monitoring everything. His calls, his movements, his bank accounts. Within 48 hours, I'll have enough evidence to bury him legally or permanently. Your choice which? My choice. As if I had any real choice in this chess game where I was simultaneously pawn and prize. I want to see him," I heard myself say. "David. I want to confront him. Hear him try to explain this. No." The word was absolute, allowing no argument. You can't just keep me here. I can. Dante leaned forward, and suddenly the space between us felt charged. Dangerous. I will. Because you confronting David right now gets you killed, Emma. He's cornered, desperate, and desperate men are unpredictable. Until I've neutralized the threat, you stay here, under my protection, alive. This is insane. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. I can't just hide here forever while you... What? Wage war against my husband? This isn't some movie, Dante. These are real lives, real consequences. You think I don't know about real consequences? He stood too, moving around the table with predatory grace. I've lived with consequences every day for 7 years. I watched my sister's car explode because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I wasn't careful enough, wasn't thorough enough in eliminating threats. I know exactly what happens when you underestimate enemies, Emma. I live with that failure every single day. The raw pain in his voice stopped my retreat. We stood there breathing hard, the air between us crackling with tension that wasn't entirely about anger. I'm sorry, I whispered. About your sister. But I'm not her, Dante. You can't keep me locked up trying to save someone who's already gone. I know you're not her. His hand rose, cupped my face with that same surprising gentleness from the night before. But you could die just as easily. And I can't watch that happen again, not when I have the power to prevent it. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I felt that touch everywhere, a current running through my entire body. This close, I could see flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell cedar and something darker, could feel the heat radiating from his body. You don't even know me, I breathed. No, he agreed, but I'm going to. Because you're under my roof now, my protection. And that means you're mine to know, mine to understand, mine to keep safe, whether you like it or not. There was that word again. Mine. Possessive. Absolute. Terrifying in its certainty. I should pull away. Should maintain distance. Remember, this man was dangerous, criminal. Someone who solved problems with violence and power. But I couldn't move. Trapped in his gravity like a moon orbiting a planet. Helpless against forces beyond my control. What do you want from me? The question came out barely audible. I want you alive, Dante said simply. Everything else is negotiable. A phone buzzed. His. Always his. And the spell broke. He stepped back, distance creating space to breathe again, and answered in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. But I watched his expression darken, watched his free hand curl into a fist. When he hung up, his eyes found mine with new intensity. What? I asked, fear climbing my throat. David filed a missing persons report an hour ago. He's claiming you're emotionally unstable, possibly suicidal, that you've been struggling with depression from work stress. Dante's jaw clenched. He's building a narrative, Emma. If you turn up dead now, he has the perfect explanation. The overworked doctor who couldn't handle the pressure. The tragic accident that was really just suicide. I finished, the word tasting like poison. He's going to make my murder look like suicide. Not if I stop him first. Dante pulled out yet another phone, began typing rapidly. I'm moving the timeline up. We take him down today, before he can implement whatever he's planning. How? His smile was cold, lethal, beautiful in its brutality. We give him exactly what he wants. We let him think he's won. And when he shows his hand completely, we destroy him. I don't understand. You will. He tucked the phone away, moved back into my space with purpose. But first, I need you to trust me. Can you do that, Emma? Can you trust me to keep you safe while we burn your husband's world to the ground? Trust. Such a simple word for such an impossible ask. Trust the Mafia boss. Trust the criminal. Trust the man who looked at me like I was simultaneously treasure and ghost. But what choice did I have? David wanted me dead. Dante wanted me alive. The math was simple, even if the implications were devastating. Yes, I whispered, I trust you. The words felt like surrender and salvation all at once. Dante's hand found my waist, pulled me flush against him in a movement so sudden I gasped. His other hand tangled in my hair, tilting my face up to his, and for one breathless moment I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he pressed his forehead to mine, breathing hard, his control visibly fraying. "You have no idea what you're doing to me," he murmured. "What it means, having you here. Seeing Sophia's face looking back at me, but knowing you're someone else entirely. Someone I can actually save this time." "Dante, stay close today," he interrupted, pulling back before I could finish whatever thought had been forming. "Don't leave my sight. We're about to poke a very dangerous bear, and I need to know you're protected every second." "What are you going to do?" His smile promised violence and vengeance in equal measure. "I'm going to let your husband know you're with me. And then we're going to watch his entire carefully constructed world collapse like the house of cards it always was. The war room, because that's what it was, despite Dante calling it his office, hummed with controlled chaos by midday. 6 monitors displayed various camera feeds, financial records, intercepted communications. 3 men in dark suits worked laptops at a side table, updating Dante in low voices about movements, transactions, patterns. I sat in the corner, watching the orchestration of my husband's downfall like watching a particularly brutal documentary. "There," one of the men said, pointing to a screen. "Morrison just withdrew $40,000 in cash from 3 different ATMs. Dante leaned forward, studying the footage of David, my David, except he'd never been mine at all, moving from machine to machine with the jerky desperation of a cornered animal. "Running money," Dante murmured. "He's preparing to bolt." "What about the woman? Claudia Brennan hasn't been seen since yesterday. Her apartment's dark, no movement. Either she's hiding or she's already dead." Dante's voice held no emotion. "David's eliminating loose ends. The accountant who helped him steal. The mistress who knows too much. And then... me," I finished quietly. "I'm the biggest loose end of all." Dante's eyes found mine across the room, and something fierce blazed in them. "He can try." Marco, one of Dante's senior men, cleared his throat. "Boss, we could just grab him now, make him disappear. Problem solved." "No." Dante straightened, rolling his shoulders like a predator preparing to strike. "I want everything documented, recorded, admissible in court if necessary. I want David Morrison destroyed so thoroughly that even his death wouldn't give him escape from what's coming. Legal first. Then if that fails, we discuss alternatives." The casual way he discussed murder should have horrified me. Instead, I felt a dark satisfaction blooming in my chest. David had planned my death with the same cold calculation. Why shouldn't I watch his destruction with equal detachment? When had I become this person? When had my capacity for violence grown teeth? "Send him a photo," Dante said suddenly. "Time-stamped, geotagged from this location. Emma, come here." I stood on shaking legs, crossed to where he waited by the windows overlooking the grounds. The afternoon sun painted everything gold and deceptive, beauty masking the ugliness of what we were doing. "Stand beside me," Dante instructed. When I hesitated, his hand found my waist, pulled me against his side with possessive certainty. "Closer. I want him to see exactly how under my protection you are." His arm around me felt like steel wrapped in silk, unyielding but not uncomfortable. I fit against him perfectly, my head barely reaching his shoulder, his body radiating heat that made me want to lean closer despite everything. Marco raised a phone, snapped several photos. In the first, I looked terrified, small against Dante's imposing presence, but in the second, something had shifted. Dante had leaned down, murmured something I didn't catch, and I'd looked up at him. The resulting image captured something dangerous, his hand possessive on my waist, my expression caught between fear and something that might have been trust, or longing, or the beginning of Stockholm Syndrome. We looked like lovers, like I belonged to him. "Perfect," Marco said, already typing, sending now with a message. "She's under my protection. If you want her back, you'll have to negotiate. Meet me tonight, 8 p.m., Pier 47. Come alone or she disappears permanently." My stomach clenched. "He'll never come alone. He'll bring backup, or worse." "He'll come alone," Dante interrupted, still holding me against him like he'd forgotten to let go. "Because he's desperate and stupid and thinks he can still manipulate his way out of this. Men like David always underestimate everyone else's intelligence while overestimating their own cleverness. And if he brings Moretti's people anyway? Dante's smile was cold. Then Pier 47 becomes a graveyard, and we solve multiple problems at once, but he won't. He'll come because he thinks you're his bargaining chip, his way to buy time or mercy or escape. He doesn't understand yet that the moment you stepped into my car, he lost every single advantage he thought he had. Marco's phone buzzed. He responded. Says he'll be there, demands proof of life, wants to talk to her. No. Dante finally released me, moved to his desk with predatory grace. Tell him he gets nothing until tonight. He shows up, follows instructions. Maybe he gets to walk away from this alive. Maybe. The threat hung in the air like smoke. I watched Dante work, issuing orders in English and Italian, coordinating what amounted to a military operation. Men would be positioned around the pier, cameras recording everything, legal witnesses if needed. Every detail planned, every contingency covered. This was his world. Power and violence and absolute control, executed with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a warlord. And I was standing in the middle of it, watching my old life burn while this dark prince fanned the flames. Emma. Dante's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Go to the library. Rest. This will take hours to arrange properly, and you don't need to watch every detail. I want to stay. The words surprised me, but once spoken I knew they were true. This is my life we're dismantling. I should witness it. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. All right. But eat something. You've had nothing but coffee all day. As if summoned by his words, Rosa appeared with a tray of sandwiches, fruit, water. She set it down without speaking, but her dark eyes assessed me with the thoroughness of a bodyguard evaluating threats. When she left, I realized she'd positioned the tray so I'd have to sit in a specific chair, the one with the best sight lines to both doors and the furthest from windows. Even the housekeeper thought tactically. Of course she did. The afternoon bled into evening while I watched Dante orchestrate vengeance with the focus of an artist creating his masterpiece. He barely ate, barely paused, every movement economical and purposeful. Sometimes he'd glance at me, as if checking I was still there, still real, still safe. Those glances felt possessive and protective in equal measure. I should have been planning my next move, thinking about what came after tonight, after David was handled, but I couldn't think past the way Dante looked in the fading light, sharp features cast in shadow, power radiating from him like heat from a forge. Dangerous. He was so dangerous, and I was starting to crave that danger like oxygen. It's time, Marco said at 7:30. Teams are in position. The pier is secure. Dante nodded, then turned to me. You're staying here. Like hell I am. I stood, surprising myself with the vehemence. I need to see this. Need to face him. Too dangerous. You'll be there. Your army will be there. I'll be safer at that pier than I've been in my own home for months. I crossed to him, invaded his space the way he'd been invading mine all day. Please, Dante, don't make me hide for this. Let me witness the end of my marriage with my own eyes. His jaw clenched, muscles working as he fought some internal battle. If you come, you stay in the car. Bulletproof glass, armed guards. You watch through cameras, not in person. Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. It was more than I'd expected. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me yet. His hand rose, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. After tonight, nothing will be the same. You understand that. There's no going back to who you were before. I don't want to go back, I whispered, and meant it. The person I'd been, small, invisible, desperate for safety. She was already dead. David had killed her the moment he decided I was worth more murdered than alive. What emerged from those ashes was someone harder, darker, capable of watching her husband's destruction without flinching, someone who could stand beside a man like Dante Caruso and not feel dwarfed by his darkness. Someone dangerous. The drive to Pier 47 took 40 minutes through evening traffic. I sat in the back of the SUV between Dante and Marco, surrounded by enough firepower to start a small war. 2 additional vehicles followed, packed with men whose eyes never stopped scanning for threats. He's early, Marco reported, checking his tablet. Arrived 10 minutes ago, alone like you predicted. Dante nodded, unsurprised. Arrogant or desperate, either way, exploitable. The pier materialized from the darkness, a skeletal structure jutting into black water, industrial and isolated, perfect for business that couldn't bear witnesses. David's car sat under a single working streetlight, and I could see his silhouette inside, checking his phone obsessively. My husband, the stranger. Our convoy stopped 100 feet away. Dante's hand found mine, squeezed once, reassurance or warning I couldn't tell. Remember, you stay here no matter what happens. Marco, if anything goes wrong, you get her out immediately. Understood? Yes, boss. Dante climbed out, and suddenly the night felt colder, emptier. I watched through the windshield as he walked toward David's car, 5 guards flanking him at discreet distances. He moved like violence given form, every step purposeful, inevitable. David got out slowly, hands visible, trying to look non-threatening and failing. Even from this distance, I could see how he'd aged in 24 hours, disheveled, unshaven, wild-eyed. Dante stopped 10 feet away. I couldn't hear the conversation, but Marco had opened a laptop showing camera feeds with audio. David's voice crackled through speakers, tinny and desperate. Where is she? Where's Emma? I know you have her, the photo proved it. I want to see my wife. Your wife. Dante's voice was silk over steel. Interesting choice of words, considering you took out a $5 million life insurance policy on her 2 weeks ago. David's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence, Morrison. I have the paperwork. Forged signature, expedited processing, beneficiary listed as you alone. That's not the behavior of a loving husband. You're crazy. Emma and I, we have a good marriage. Whatever lies you've been told. The lies stop here. Dante pulled out his phone, held it up. I have footage of you with Claudia Brennan. I have records of money you've stolen from my foundation. I have communications between you and Vincent Moretti's people. Do you want me to continue, or shall we skip to the part where you explain why you thought you could betray me and live? David's knees nearly buckled. I can explain. The gambling debts, I was desperate. Claudia said it would be easy, that you'd never notice. I notice everything. Dante stepped closer, and even through the camera, his menace was palpable, including the fact that Claudia Brennan's body was pulled from the East River this morning. Strangled. Professional job. Now why would someone want to kill your accomplice, David? The color drained from David's face completely. I didn't. That wasn't me. I would never. No? But you'd kill your wife? Stage it as suicide or an accident? Collect the insurance money? Pay off your debts and disappear? That murder was within your capabilities? No. David's voice cracked. I wasn't going to hurt Emma. The insurance was just, it was backup, in case something happened. In case you made something happen. Dante's hand shot out, gripped David's throat with casual violence. You marked her for death, signed the paperwork, made arrangements with people who specialize in permanent solutions. And then you had the audacity to file a missing persons report, plant the seeds for a suicide narrative. Did you think I wouldn't see it? Did you think I'd let you destroy something precious because you're a weak, pathetic gambler who can't control himself? I couldn't breathe. Watching Dante defend me with such vicious conviction, hearing the rage in his voice at the thought of my death, it did something to my chest, tightened something that had been loose and aching for years. David clawed at Dante's hand, choking. Please, I'll pay you back, every penny. Just let me go. You'll pay. Dante released him, and David collapsed to his knees, gasping. But not with money. I'm turning everything I have over to the FBI. Financial crimes, conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder. You'll spend the next 20 years in federal prison, and every single day, you'll remember that you had something precious and destroyed it for gambling debts and a mistress who's now fish food. You can't. David looked up, tears streaming down his face. Please, Caruso, I have connections. I can make this worth your while. Moretti will pay for Emma. She's valuable to you, right? That's why you took her? We can make a deal. The punch came so fast I barely saw it. One moment David was talking. The next, he was on the ground, blood pouring from his nose, Dante standing over him like an avenging angel. "You just tried to sell your wife to your co-conspirators," Dante said softly, and somehow the quietness was more terrifying than shouting. "That was your last mistake." He pulled out his phone, made a call. "FBI field office? I have information about David Morrison, wanted for financial fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. He's currently at Pier 47, unconscious and gift-wrapped for you. I'm sending over evidence files now. You have 20 minutes before I change my mind about handling this legally." He hung up, looked down at David's crumpled form with disgust. "Emma deserved better than you," he said. "She deserves someone who sees her value, who would burn the world before letting harm touch her. She deserves everything you were too blind to appreciate." Then he turned and walked back toward our vehicle, leaving David bleeding and broken in the dirt. The door opened. Dante slid in beside me, and his eyes found mine immediately. Checking, always checking that I was safe, unharmed, still there. "It's done," he said quietly. "The FBI will handle the legal prosecution. He'll go away for decades." I should have felt something. Relief, satisfaction, grief for the marriage that had never been real. Instead, I felt only numbness and a strange, fierce gratitude toward the man beside me who'd just destroyed my husband without hesitation. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me." His hand found my face, thumb brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. "He hurt you. Planned to kill you. There's no thanks necessary for protecting what's mine." There it was again. That word. That claim. And this time, I didn't argue. Instead, I leaned into his touch, let myself be held by this dangerous man who'd saved my life and shattered my world in equal measure. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The FBI, coming to collect the pieces of David Morrison's ruined life. Inside, Dante Caruso held me like I was something precious, something worth protecting, something that belonged to him, and maybe I did. Maybe I always had, from the moment I'd climbed into his car and chosen the devil I could see. The devil who looked at me like I was worth saving. Block 5. 3 weeks later, I stood in Dante's library, watching rain streak down floor-to-ceiling windows while thunder rumbled in the distance. The room smelled of leather and old books, and the coffee Rosa had brought an hour ago, now gone cold in its cup. 3 weeks since David's arrest, 3 weeks since my old life had crumbled into ash. 3 weeks of living in this beautiful fortress, orbiting Dante Caruso like a moon trapped in gravity's pull. The newspapers had been brutal. Hospital administrator arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Missing doctor found safe, husband charged with conspiracy to commit murder. The media had devoured every salacious detail. The gambling debts, the dead mistress, the insurance policy, my miraculous rescue by an anonymous benefactor who'd provided evidence to authorities. Anonymous. As if anyone in certain circles didn't know exactly who'd orchestrated David Morrison's downfall. I'd given statements to the FBI, sat through interviews with prosecutors building their case. David had tried to implicate me initially, claimed I'd known about everything, was complicit. But Dante's lawyers, an army of them, terrifying in their competence, had shredded those accusations within hours. By the time they were done, I was the tragic victim, the devoted wife betrayed by a monster. Which was true, mostly. What the lawyers didn't mention was how easily I'd slipped into my new existence. How natural it felt waking up in Dante's home, eating meals he insisted Rosa prepare specifically to my tastes, spending evenings in this library while he worked in the adjacent office. How the weight of his protection had started feeling less like imprisonment and more like belonging. "You're brooding again." I turned to find Dante in the doorway, still in the dark suit he'd worn to some meeting earlier. He'd loosened his tie, undone the top button of his shirt, and the casual dishevelment made him look younger, more human. Almost approachable if you ignored the gun I knew he carried and the danger that clung to him like cologne. "Just thinking," I said. Dangerous habit. He crossed to the bar cart, poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if I wanted one. I'd learned he did that, made decisions for me, anticipated my needs before I voiced them. It should have been infuriating. Instead, it felt like being known. He handed me a glass, our fingers brushing in the exchange. That simple touch sent electricity up my arm, the same current that had been building between us for weeks. Unspoken, undeniable, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with violence. "The prosecutor called," Dante said, settling into the chair across from mine. "Trial date is set, 6 months from now. They're confident about conviction. The evidence is overwhelming." "Good." I sipped the whiskey, welcomed its burn. He deserves whatever he gets. He deserves worse. Dante's eyes darkened. "But prison will have to suffice. I promised you legal resolution. I keep my promises." He did. In 3 weeks, I'd learned Dante Caruso was many things: ruthless, possessive, capable of casual violence, but he never lied. Never made promises he couldn't keep. There was a strange honor in that, a code that governed his darkness. What happens now? I asked the question that had been haunting me for days. After the trial, after everything's settled, what happens to me? Something shifted in Dante's expression, muscles tightening along his jaw. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know." I set down my glass, wrapped my arms around myself. My marriage is over. My apartment was in David's name. I can't go back there. The hospital is uncomfortable with the publicity. They've suggested I take extended leave. Everything I built, everything I thought was my life, it's all gone. Not gone. Dante leaned forward, elbows on his knees, focus laser sharp on my face. Transformed. "You have money now?" I made sure David's assets were frozen, the life insurance policy canceled. "You'll receive restitution from the criminal proceedings. You could go anywhere, do anything. Start over completely." Start over. The phrase should have excited me. Instead, it felt hollow. Where would I go? The question came out smaller than intended. I don't have family. My friends were really David's friends. The hospital was my whole world, and now even that feels tainted. Where does someone go when everything they knew was a lie? Dante stood abruptly, moved to the windows, presenting me with his back. Rain continued its assault on the glass. Nature's violence contained safely outside while we navigated the more dangerous storms brewing inside. "You could stay," he said quietly. "Here, with me." My heart stopped, restarted at double speed. "What?" "I have properties around the world, security, resources, anything you could need. You could continue your medical career or not, your choice, but you'd be safe, protected, provided for." He turned, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole my breath. "You could stay, Emma, if you wanted." "As what?" I stood too, needing to be on my feet for this conversation. "Your charity case? The woman you saved who looks like your dead sister?" "No." He crossed to me in 3 strides, and suddenly we were too close, breathing the same air, his heat overwhelming. "Not charity, not replacement, as mine." There was that word again, the one that had haunted me for weeks, whispered in dark corners of my mind while I tried to sleep in the guest suite that had started feeling like home. "I don't understand what you're offering," I whispered. "Neither do I." His hands rose, cupped my face with that gentleness that always surprised me. "I only know that these past 3 weeks have been the first time since Sophia died that I've felt alive. Having you here, knowing you're safe under my roof, seeing you at breakfast, watching you read in this library, it's become necessary. You've become necessary, Dante." I know it's insane. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and I trembled. "I know you should run from me, from this world, from everything I represent. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. I'll do worse things in the future, but I'm a man who protects what's his, who values loyalty above everything. Who would burn the entire world before letting harm touch you? You barely know me," I breathed, even as my body swayed toward his. "I know you're brilliant. I know you work yourself to exhaustion helping people. I know you bite your lip when you're uncertain and take your coffee with too much sugar. I know you're stronger than you think, braver than you believe. I know you've survived a husband who wanted you dead and emerged from that not broken, but forged into something harder, fiercer." His forehead pressed to mine. "I know you feel this too, this pull between us. Tell me I'm wrong. I couldn't. Because he wasn't wrong. For 3 weeks I'd felt it, this magnetic attraction, this dangerous connection that went beyond gratitude or Stockholm Syndrome or whatever rational explanation I tried to apply. Something deeper, darker, inevitable. I'm not her, I said, the old argument weak now. I'm not Sophia. I can't replace your sister. I know you're not her. Thank God you're not her, because what I feel for you isn't brotherly or protective in any familial way. His hands tightened on my face. You're Emma. Brave, beautiful. Mine in ways that have nothing to do with resemblance and everything to do with this. He grabbed my hand, pressed it to his chest where his heart thundered. Feel that? That's what you do to me. What you've done to me since the moment I saw you in that hospital break room looking lost and exhausted and so damn beautiful I forgot how to breathe. This is crazy, I whispered, but my hand stayed pressed to his chest, feeling his heartbeat, matching my own racing pulse. Yes, he agreed, completely insane, but I stopped trying to rationalize it days ago. I want you, Emma. Want you here, in my home, in my life. Want you safe and protected and mine in every way that matters. I'm not offering you a cage. You're free to leave any time, but I'm asking you to stay, to choose this. Choose me. The rain hammered harder against the windows, thunder rolling like artillery fire. Inside, we stood in our own storm, electricity crackling between us, 3 weeks of tension finally demanding resolution. I should say no. Should thank him for saving my life and walk away from this beautiful, dangerous man who represented everything chaotic and violent I'd spent my life trying to avoid. Should choose safety, normalcy, a return to the person I'd been before David's betrayal shattered my world. But that person was gone, and the woman standing here now, forged in fire and darkness, wanted different things, wanted him. I'm terrified, I admitted, of you, of this world, of what staying means. Good. His smile was sharp, beautiful. Fear keeps you smart, keeps you alive. I'd never ask you to trust me blindly. But I am asking you to give this a chance. Give us a chance. Us. The word felt foreign and right simultaneously. What would it look like? I asked. If I stayed? However you want it to look. His hand slid from my face to my waist, pulled me flush against him. You could continue your medical career. I have connections at every hospital in the city. Or explore something new. Travel, study, anything. You'd have your own space, your own life, but you'd come home to me, sleep in my bed, wake up beside me, be mine in every way that matters. And if it doesn't work, the practical question, the last defense against this insanity, then you leave with enough money to start over anywhere you want. No strings, no recriminations. I told you. You're not a prisoner, Emma. You're a choice I'm making every day. I'm just asking you to choose me back. Thunder cracked directly overhead, and I flinched. Dante's arms tightened instinctively, his body forming a shield even against weather that couldn't touch us. That gesture, unconscious, protective, absolute, decided me. I'd spent my entire life choosing safety, choosing small, manageable dreams that wouldn't hurt too much when they disappointed me. Choosing David because he seemed predictable and stable and wouldn't demand too much. And where had that gotten me? Nearly murdered. Completely betrayed. Invisible in my own marriage. Maybe it was time to choose differently. Choose the danger I could see. Choose the man who looked at me like I was precious and worth protecting and necessary for his next breath. Choose darkness that paradoxically felt more honest than all the false light I'd been living in. Okay, I whispered. Dante went completely still. Okay? I'll stay. I'll try this. Try us. I looked up into those storm-gray eyes that had haunted my dreams for weeks. I'm probably going to regret this. It's definitely insane, but I'm choosing you, Dante Caruso. I'm choosing this. The smile that transformed his face was devastating. Pure joy mixed with triumph, mixed with something that looked suspiciously like relief. Then his mouth was on mine, and the world exploded into sensation. The kiss was nothing like David's careful, passionless pecks. This was claiming, possessive, demanding response. Dante kissed me like he was memorizing my taste. like he'd been starving for weeks and I was sustenance. His hands tangled in my hair, tilted my head to deepen the kiss, and I melted against him with a soft sound that was half surrender, half relief. This was what I'd been missing, this fire, this passion, this feeling of being consumed and cherished simultaneously. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. Mine, he murmured, the word a vow. Say it. Say you're mine. Yours, I breathed, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. I'm yours, Dante. The possessive satisfaction in his eyes should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel powerful. This dangerous man, this force of nature wanted me, claimed me, would burn the world to keep me safe. I should warn you, he said, tucking me against his chest. I'm not good at sharing, not good at casual. When I commit to something, I commit completely. You're going to get all of me, Emma. The darkness, the violence, the possessiveness, all of it. I know. And I did. I'd seen exactly who Dante Caruso was these past 3 weeks. Had watched him orchestrate my husband's destruction with cold precision, had seen the loyalty he inspired in his people, the fear he commanded in his enemies. Had witnessed both his capacity for violence and his surprising gentleness with me. I knew exactly what I was choosing. And I chose it anyway. No more guest suite, Dante said suddenly. You move into my room tonight. I want you beside me where I can protect you. Know you're safe. The command should have rankled. Instead, warmth spread through my chest. Okay. Okay? He pulled back, studying my face. Just like that? No argument about boundaries or taking things slow. We're past slow. I reached up, traced the scar along his jaw. You've had me investigated, know everything about me. I've lived in your house for 3 weeks. We destroyed my husband together. I think we can skip the slow part. His laugh was surprised, genuine. You continue to surprise me. Good. I'd hate to be predictable. Emma Morrison, he murmured. You are many things. Predictable isn't one of them. Not Morrison anymore, I said quietly. That name belongs to someone I'm not anymore. Someone weak and invisible who let herself be overlooked. I want to go back to my maiden name. Emma Chen. Emma Chen. He tested it, rolled it around his mouth like wine. Beautiful, strong, suits you better than Morrison ever did. Thunder rumbled, softer now as the storm moved away. But the one between us was just beginning, a different kind of storm. One built on attraction and danger and the tentative hope that maybe, somehow, we could build something real from the ashes of my old life. Dance with me, Dante said suddenly. There's no music. There doesn't need to be. He pulled me close, one hand on my waist, the other clasping my hand, and began swaying gently. When I was young, my mother used to dance with my father in the library just like this. No music, just them, shutting out the world. I softened against him, let him lead me in this slow, intimate waltz to thunder and rain. You never talk about your family. They're mostly gone now. My parents died 10 years ago in a plane crash. Sophia 7 years ago. I have cousins, distant relatives, but no one close. No one who matters. He pressed a kiss to my temple. Until now. Until now. Until me. The weight of that responsibility should have crushed me. Instead, it felt like purpose. Like mattering to someone again. Like being seen completely and chosen anyway. We danced until the rain stopped. Until the storm cleared and left the world washed clean. When Dante finally led me upstairs to his bedroom, our bedroom now, I didn't hesitate, didn't second guess, just followed this dangerous man who'd saved my life and stolen my heart in equal measure. His room was masculine, minimal, dominated by a massive bed and windows overlooking the grounds. He'd had my things moved in already, my clothes in the closet, my toiletries in the bathroom, my books on the nightstand. Presumptuous, arrogant, and somehow perfect. I knew you'd say yes, he said, catching my expression. Call it confidence or wishful thinking. I couldn't stand another night knowing you were down the hall. So close but separate. I needed you here. Possessive, I murmured. Completely. He pulled me against him, nuzzled into my neck. Get used to it. I don't share, Emma. Not you, not ever. You're mine now, and I take care of what's mine. I should have bristled at being claimed so thoroughly. Instead, I relaxed into his hold, let myself be enveloped by his strength. After years of being invisible, overlooked, forgotten, being possessed felt like being treasured. We slept tangled together that night, Dante holding me like I might disappear if he loosened his grip, and maybe I might have, if some part of me hadn't been clinging just as tightly back. 6 months later, I stood in a courthouse wearing a designer suit Dante had insisted on buying, watching David receive his sentence. 23 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. His lawyers had tried everything: plea deals, cooperation agreements, character witnesses. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the judge showed no mercy. David's eyes found mine across the courtroom as they led him away in handcuffs. Once, I would have seen my husband, my future, my safe choice. Now, I saw only a stranger who'd tried to kill me. A weak man who'd gambled away everything for debts, and a mistress, and shortcuts he'd thought would save him. Good. Dante murmured beside me, his hand finding mine. It's done. Over. And it was. The trial had lasted 3 weeks, but the verdict took the jury only 4 hours. David Morrison was going away for decades. The money he'd stolen had been recovered, the life insurance policy voided, his reputation destroyed beyond repair. Justice. Legal. Final. Absolute. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Dante's security created a barrier, guided us to the waiting car. I'd learned to navigate this world. The cameras, the questions, the constant presence of guards, had learned to hold my head high, meet the world's curiosity with quiet dignity, had learned to be Dante Caruso's partner in every way that mattered. How do you feel? He asked once we were sealed in the SUV, privacy glass separating us from the driver. Free, I said, and meant it. Finally free. Good. He pulled me against him, kissed my temple. Because I have something to ask you, and I wanted you completely untethered from the past first. I pulled back, studied his face. There was nervousness there, actual nervousness on Dante Caruso's normally implacable expression. What? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. I know it's fast, he said, flipping open the box to reveal a ring that probably cost more than most people's houses. A perfect diamond surrounded by emeralds that matched my eyes. I know we've only been together 6 months. I know you might want more time. But Emma, I've wasted enough time in my life, lost enough people. I know what I want, and I want you. Permanently. Legally. Mine in every way the world recognizes. Dante, marry me. The words weren't a question but a plea. Not because you need protection or security. Not because I saved you, but because these 6 months have been the best of my life. Because you make me want to be better, do better, build something lasting instead of just surviving. Because I love you, Emma Chen, completely, possessively, permanently. Marry me. Love. He'd never said it before. We'd skirted around the word, implied it through actions and possession, and the way we clung to each other in the dark. But hearing it now, raw and honest and vulnerable, broke something open in my chest. I love you too, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. God help me. I love you. You're dangerous and possessive and probably going to drive me insane with your overprotectiveness. But yes, I'll marry you. The smile that transformed his face was pure joy. He slid the ring onto my finger. Perfect fit, of course, because Dante planned everything, and kissed me with enough passion to fog the windows. Mine, he murmured against my lips. Finally, legally, permanently mine. Yours, I agreed, always yours. And I was. Completely, willingly, forever. The girl who'd wanted safety had found something better, passionate, fierce, all-consuming love with a man who would burn the world to keep her safe. As we drove back to the estate, our home now, in every way, I twisted the ring on my finger and thought about the journey that had brought me here. From invisible doctor, to murdered wife, to Mafia princess. From overlooked to obsessed over. from settling for crumbs to demanding the whole feast. David had wanted me dead. Instead, he'd freed me to become someone stronger, fiercer, capable of loving a man as dangerous and complex as Dante Caruso. The irony was beautiful. That night, Dante made love to me with the possessive intensity of a man claiming his future wife, whispering promises against my skin. Protection, devotion, forever. And I gave as good as I got, claiming him right back, this beautiful, damaged man who'd saved me in every way that mattered. We married 3 months later in a private ceremony at the estate, surrounded by Dante's people who'd become my people. Rosa cried. Dante's men looked uncomfortable in formal wear, but pleased for their boss, and I walked down an aisle lined with white roses. Sophia's favorite flower, Dante told me later, his way of including his sister in our happiness. The vows were traditional, but when Dante slipped the wedding band beside my engagement ring and said mine instead of I do, nobody corrected him. Because that's what we were to each other, possession and choice, darkness and light, two broken people who'd found each other in the ashes and decided to build something beautiful. I never went back to medicine. Instead, I founded a charity, using Dante's connections but my vision, focused on helping women escape dangerous relationships, providing resources, protection, new identities when needed, saving other Emmas before they needed rescuing. Dante supported it completely, even when it occasionally put us at odds with certain business associates. "You're my conscience," he'd say, kissing my protests away. "Keep me human, Emma. Keep me worthy of you," as if he wasn't already everything I needed. Years passed. We built a life together, messy, passionate, imperfect but real. Dante's darkness never disappeared, but I learned to navigate it, even embrace it. And my light never dimmed, but it grew fiercer, more confident, backed by the absolute certainty that someone had my back. We had children eventually, 2 daughters who inherited their father's intensity and their mother's compassion. Dante was an impossibly overprotective father, running background checks on preschool teachers and installing security systems in our daughters' bedrooms. But he was also tender, patient, teaching them to be strong and fierce and never settle for being invisible. Sophia, we named the eldest after his sister, had his gray eyes and my dark hair. Elena, the youngest, was all fire and stubbornness. Both learned early that they were precious, protected, cherished beyond measure. Both learned never to be small for anyone. And me? I became Emma Caruso, wife to a dangerous man, mother to fierce daughters, founder of a charity that saved lives. Became someone who'd faced death and chosen life, who'd been offered safety and chosen passion, who'd survived betrayal and found something better on the other side. I became exactly who I was always meant to be, and every night, when Dante pulled me close in the darkness of our bedroom, his hand possessive on my waist, his breath warm against my neck, I remembered the terrified woman who'd climbed into his car that night, who'd chosen the devil she could see and found salvation in his darkness. "Mine," he'd whisper, the old claim now layered with years of love and life and choice. "Yours," I'd answer, the old surrender now a victory, because sometimes the scariest choice becomes the best choice. Sometimes danger offers more safety than security ever could. Sometimes the man everyone fears is the only one brave enough to see you completely and love you anyway. Sometimes you have to let your old life burn to ashes before you can rise as something new, something fierce, something finally, perfectly yourself. And sometimes love looks like possession, protection, and a mafia boss who calls you his in a voice that promises forever. I chose that love. I chose that life. I chose Dante. And I'd choose him again, every single time, in every lifetime, until the world stopped spinning and the stars went dark. Mine and his. Fierce and forever. Darkness and light wrapped together into something beautiful and terrible and completely, impossibly ours.